Hey folks, it's Francisco, and we're gonna continue working on our React application, and we're gonna finish our Pomodoro timer. So one of the key things that we want to do for this next few segments, hopefully one, but we'll see how long it takes for us to get this done, is we'll start to keep track of the intervals of the Pomodoro timer, and we're also going to implement HowlerJs. The way that we do this is we're going to run a npm install and howler. And once we type this in, it's going to install howler, but I don't need to do that since we already have howler set up for this environment. And you'll notice that there is a little bit of a change here. So under the public folder, you'll see that I have a media folder where I have the bell and the clock MP3. So we're going to use MP3 files to pretty much play those sounds as we use our application. Another thing to keep in mind is that I do have a Git, and I'll post a link to the GitHub so you can download these files if you want to follow along. It also will kind of let you compare so you can see how your code looks like versus mine, and we'll have a change log of the commits that we do. Cool. So let's get started. So we'll start by looking at HowlerJS docs. And if you go to HowlerJS, you'll see that the GitHub has some documentation. And it's pretty easy to set up. So what we'll look is we'll go through the GitHub and we'll install it via npm since we're using npm. And we'll go ahead and import it as a dependency. So we'll go ahead and copy this over here, and we'll just go ahead and import our dependency here. So now we can use Howler. So I think we're only going to use Howler for how we're going to use this right now. So we don't need to import how. So now we also need to import our resources since we're using Webpack. So just kind of do media, and then I'll do import, and then I'll do clock for testing, and then I'll just go back to the root of the document, and then we'll go to public media. And since it's an MP3 file, it's not gonna want to auto-complete it, but we'll just go ahead and do it this way. Cool. Now, if we go back to our documentation, it'll show us how we implement our implement our sound. So we can see we're going to declare a variable called sound, and it's going to be a new howl. So howl is a class, and it will have a source of MP3. Cool. And then our new class called sound is going to have a method called play, and we can use play to essentially play that sound. And we do have extra options here that we can use. So little attributes that we can change. So if we want to use a sprite or a sound sprite, or we want to set it to autoplay. So we do want to set our clock to loop. So let's just start it. And instead of using a variable, we'll use a constant since we're using the new method of writing JavaScript. So let's go over here, and we'll call this assets, and we'll start with a const, and then we'll call this background. We'll just call clock loop equals new, and then we'll put howler, and then and then we'll just go ahead and start here, and the source, and it's inside of a string. So we'll go ahead and put in clock. And I think I want to change it to clock MP3. That way we know the file. Okay, cool. So now we can play this. So we'll put the value. So whenever we have this running, we'll make sure that we do play when it's running, and if time ends, we'll do stop. And then we'll also want to put it when we pause a timer and when we reset the timer. Actually, when we reset the timer, yeah. So we'll want to paste that over here. And actually, I think we can probably change it to start whenever we start right here. And I think I want this to run first before we, okay, cool. So if everything's right, oh, and then we have to set the autoplay. Okay, so let's go back and see what loop. That's and loop. What did I do? Darn these MT3 keycaps. So we'll just do true, and I think it's a Boolean value, right? Okay. So now let's do our npm run dev, and make sure you installed Howler. That way you can actually use it. npm run start. That's our command that we're looking for. So if you don't install Howler, you won't have your dependency, your Howler dependency in your node modules. So just make sure that you have it installed. And this is not on my web browser that I'm using right now. Which falls outside the source. Okay. All right. So you can't import from, which is weird because I don't know inside. Okay. So I have to move media inside source. So let's go ahead and move it here. Okay, cool. And we'll have to change this to, let's see if it'll let me. Let's see if it'll like that. Okay. Control Shift I. Let's go look at our console. Import module. Howler is not a constructor. Okay. Let's go to the right. Cool. So we got an error. So Howler Webpack, okay, is not a constructor. Howler is not a constructor, so it's not a object. It's not a class constructor. Okay. Oh, it's Howl. My bad. Yeah, that's goofed up there. Should be Howl. I broke it because I should go into my assets and change this to Howl. It's not defined. Save it. Okay, cool. Now I should be in the clear. Okay, cool. Let's clear this. Nope. Clear. All right, so we start. You should hear it play. So that's pretty cool. So now we got it to play. So now let's go check our functions and make sure that they're playing. So when we pause it, it should stop. The problem is that it's still playing. Okay, so it's still playing. So obviously, maybe the stop is not the proper method to call. So let's go back over here and see if we can figure out what the methods are. There we go, methods. So we have play, we have pause and stop. Okay. So let's try pause and see what happens. So should be, and let's do pause. Let's try that. All right, cool. So if we do this, pause. Okay, so it's just doubling up. That's not good. So let's reset it. Let's start. Let's pause. Okay, so it's not doing it. All right. Let's reset it so we can get the clicker to stop. All right, so clock loop. That's okay, so we're making it stop here if it is checking out to 0. And this is not, okay. Loop, okay. Pause timer, set running, pause. All right, let's do this. And that should be pause timer, okay. Maybe we put it down lower, it might, God, I just stop, okay. And it's still going. Strange. All right, so we don't see anything in our console that is telling us that it's going to stop. So, all right, let's comment out the loop and see if the loop will make it stop. Nope, still nothing. That is an interesting one. So let's go ahead and unloop this and then figure out why it's doing this. Hey guys, so I did pause the video for a little bit. I had to do some research on why HowlerJs was not stopping. So read something about it being something funky with React. So originally we had our assets inside of our React what's it called, component. So yeah, so it was in our React component. So what we did is we moved it outside of our React component. And I guess it has to do something with the rendering of the way that React handles the DOM. And you'll see that right here are certain states are able to be updated. So we kind of point those re-rendering. So that is one of the reasons why it's not working. So the simple fix is just to move it outside of your React component. So once you move your clock loop or whatever you name it, your Howler asset outside of your React component, you should be able to stop it. So I did set mine on mute at one point just to kind of give it a test, and I forgot to change it. So make sure that your start timer sets it to play, your pause timer sets it to stop, and your reset timer changes it to stop. So I'll go ahead and change this one over to pause, just so I can make sure that it doesn't sound weird. So let's go ahead and check it out and see how it looks like. So we start it. And then we pause it. And we start. And we should continue where we left off. So another highlight, let me pause this so it's not playing while I finish. All right, so another highlight is that we have it set to loop. So since we verified that that's going to work, let's go ahead and import another one. And we're going to import another media file called bell mp3. And it's going to be the same src. And we'll go ahead and do media. And this one's going to be bell.b3. Cool. And I'll go ahead and save it. And I'll just lazy copy this over here. Let this one called build sfx, and we'll change this one to bell, and we won't loop this one. So we want this to play once it stops. So we'll go ahead and set it up over here. We'll play. Cool. So now, whenever we start, we should be able to essentially hear the bell. Now, what do we want to do if we just want to change the time interval that we want to establish here? So I think this will be a great opportunity to just add additional components to our application. Pause this again. So the way that we're going to do this is on our next run, we are going to add maybe a way that we can kind of change or toggle the minutes. So I'm thinking about having a horizontal slider, and we can look at our Bootstrap components to see if there's something that will fit that criteria that we want to do. We also want to have a way to lower our volume on our Howler, just in case if it's somewhat annoying, and even mute it. So if we go back to our Howler documentation, and by the way, there's also a plugin, or not a plugin, but a library called React Howler, which is essentially a React.js wrapper. So you don't have to go through the extra steps of having to set it up this way. It's a little bit simpler, so you can see the way that React Howler just has the source, and then it has you can put it inside your React component instead of having it outside. Some people would rather have it this way, but just because I don't want to use anything else besides like the original library, I'm gonna go ahead and just kind of not use this one. I mean, for our intent and purpose, this is fine for us. Okay, cool. So let's go back to Howler. So we do have a way to mute it if we need to, and we can control the volume options here. So the volume goes from 0.0 to 1.0. So we'll use decimal values over here to change that as well. So we'll do that for our clock background noise. That way we can reduce it and not make it as loud, or kind of have a softer one. So let's go ahead and also look at our React strap, I think, Bootstrap. So we'll go ahead and copy this. We'll try to get some documentation to see what's the best way that we can implement some components that are already built in to React strap to control the way that we change the time, and also keep track of our intervals. So we'll go ahead and look at the components. So we can maybe do buttons, left and right buttons. That probably will be the best way, or we could probably do a progress. That's not really what I want to do. So I guess a button might be the best way. So let's go ahead and just mess with those buttons, shall we? Cool. So we'll have a left and right button. So let's go over here, go into our component, go into the render.js. So we want to put it right underneath our timer. So we'll go ahead and put in another div here. And I can't autocomplete it here for some reason. All right. Go ahead and save this. I'll go ahead and put in a class name. And what I'll do is I'll call this uh, messed up all time. Control, and what I'll do is I'll call this a container and display flex and align items center. Center, and we'll change this one over to flex row because we want them to be row. I'll do save. I'll import two button components here. And I'll have a minus plus. All right, so let's see how they look like. Let's go back here. All right, so they are on a row. Maybe flex center. Maybe we want to take away flex center because it's not really on the. It's not really where you know what? Let's take away container. I think that's not what we want to use. Okay. Let's go. Let's look at Bootstrap. And what are we looking for? Bootstrap Flexbox. Look at where we have Flexbox. All right. So what we want to do is inline flex. We want it to flex item, justify content center. That's what we want to do. So I'll just copy this right here. Flex row, flex. All right, all right, there we go. Now we do want to have some padding in between here. So what we'll do here is, I think we can still, number one, let's put these as H1s. And then I'll put minus, and let's do H1 here. H1, put plus here. Let's go back and check. Okay. These are big enough now. And what we'll do is, actually, we can probably use the flex box to space them out instead of using. So auto margins, and we can do deflex. What's this one right here? Okay, that's not what I want to do. Don't want it to wrap. So there's a spacing for flex, and I can't remember flex box. I can't remember which one it was. Which is that's what's kind of bummy about it. Width align, margin bottom, and so let's do here class name. And we'll do this as well. I'm just gonna go ahead and I'll just use the padding, and then I think this should kind of space this out. No, it didn't. All right. Okay, so this one is deflex. Okay, margin auto P2. Oh, Okay. Let's see if this works. And I'm thinking that it may not even work because it's a component. So, you know what? I think that's a problem. So let's give them some space. So number one, can you actually, let me just do, that should be different. Okay, there we go. And that was the minus, right? Okay. Last name, change it to as well. Okay. So we should have to, okay, that's too much. Let's do one. And let's go to button here. I think there's some button information that we can change. No, I think href, okay, type, button submit, variant. Oh man. Toggle button, which is really not what we want to. Okay. So the way that you set the button size, there we go. And oh, that's inside this quote. So we'll change the button size to large. And go ahead and copy this over here. And cool. So maybe we should probably put it to M2 here, just to be on the safe side. All right, that's somewhat better. Okay, cool. So now what we want to do is we want to hook these up to reduce the time on minutes. So let's go ahead and do that since we're here. That should be an easy one. How do you think we're going to do this one? So we'll go ahead and just hook it up here to reduce time. So we'll do this called constant and reduce time. And we're just going to set this and we'll do another pointer function and we'll call this one increase time. All right, we'll save it. And we're gonna change the minutes here. Time minutes is time minutes minus 1. And increase time minutes plus 1. Okay, we'll save that. What else do we want to do here while we're here? We also reduce time. Yeah, I think that's it. So that's an easy one. So we'll go ahead and hook this up over on our button. So on click, so reduce. All right. And here we'll go to on click, and we'll do increase. Cool. So now we can see that we can reduce the time. Now, there's one caveat to this, is that we'll be able to reduce time, but we can go past 0. I mean, we don't want to do that. So the way that we can fix this is with a conditional statement. So if, oops, forgot my logic. Okay, so if time min is greater than 0, then we can increase time. And I don't want to have a ridiculous amount of time for my Pomodoro timer, is that won't make it very useful, and it defeats the purpose of having a Pomodoro timer. So time minutes is less than anything over 100 minutes is ridiculous. I get that if you go into flow, and let's account for that. All right, cool. So let's go ahead and look into our application and make sure that we got that logic set in. So we should only be able to go to 0, no further. And we should, I'm not going to click all the way to 100, but you get what I'm saying. So let's actually, now that we have this functionality, let's go ahead and test it and make sure that we can get our bell to start once it's done. So I guess we'll just hang out for a minute and I'll just pause it and we'll come back. Cool, so now we're back and we're almost there, and we'll make sure it rings. Okay, so we got the ring and that worked. The problem is, now that we have a negative and 59 seconds, so that's an interesting one, and that's because I guess the way that we have our logic set is that it doesn't stop in time, and we'll have to fix that one here. And I think here we can stop. Okay, so it's doing this, and I think we could figure this one out real quick by set time minutes, set time in second to 0 before we do all that. I think that should fix that issue. We'll kind of do that in the debugging. So I think this is going to work. I don't know. What do you guys think? I'm just going to cut it short here, and we can wrap this up on another one. We'll just call it debugging and extra features. So essentially, we have most of the functionality. We can decrease and we can increase. Now we also are going to have another new set of states in our future one, once we're done with some small debugging. So we'll be able to keep track of 4 intervals. And these intervals are going to lead us up to a 30-minute break. So we will also keep track of single intervals, and we'll have 5-minute breaks between those single intervals. So I'm thinking maybe we can have some kind of GIF or something, not a GIF, an emoji that we can kind of put underneath here. And I'm thinking maybe we can just have another flex box. And I'm a big fan of bananas, so I'll find the banana emoji and put it over here. So that's it for this lesson so far. Let me know if you're liking it so far, if you're learning valuable skills, if you're refreshing with your refreshing up on your React. components and React logic. And I hope to see you on the next one. Make sure you hit the subscribe button so you can be alerted when we're dropping these courses or tutorials. I think I will be dropping them every Wednesday. So every Wednesday at 7 Central Time, you should see a new one come up until we're somewhat done with this Pomodoro and have it deployed on an AWS instance. So thank you guys for watching. I'll see you on the next one.